to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Hey everybody, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior Show. Hey, it's great to be back and here live with you, and we have a great guest in the green room. I'm going to put something on screen here for a moment, so stand by everybody if I can just show you this. There we go. Well, I want to say thank you to everyone. The show has gained great claim. We're in the number 2 CEO podcast, as rated by FeedSpot out of California, top 10 leadership podcast, and also Million Podcasts. I didn't know about these guys, but Million Podcasts, they rate you for storytelling, and we're apparently in the top 100 storytelling podcasts internationally. That's because of the great guests and because of you. In fact, we have now our guests that are booked out 3 months, and there's a wait list to get on the show every week. So if you have a chat feature there, you can put a comment in the chat and you can interact with us today. And this will be released across LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, X, and Rumble, which is just awesome. So let me take that off the screen now, and we're going to get the introduction started. So stand by, everybody. What would it be like to learn about our guest from her deep story? What if the thing that made you feel like you didn't belong was actually the thing that would prepare you for everything that was ahead of you? Now picture this, a little girl, she's 7 years old. She's just arrived in Vancouver, Canada, from China, and she doesn't speak a word of English. And on her first day, she opens her lunch bag, dumplings. Her mother packed her wonderful dumplings. But the other kids, they just stare. So she learns to hide them. And over time, she starts hiding more than her lunch. She hides her culture. She hides her language. She hides who she is. Because fitting in felt like just surviving. Now, 18 years later, she goes back to China to work, and she expects to finally feel at home. Instead, she's told she's not Chinese enough. Whew. Too Western for the East, too Eastern for the West. She belongs to neither of those worlds. That could have broken her, but instead, it became her greatest insight. Now, she called it culture fluid, the ability to live in the space between worlds, to read new systems without losing yourself, to treat difference not as a wound, but as an instrument. She took that insight into TEDx on the stage. She took it inside Alibaba, where she advised heads of state and the world's largest brands on navigating the future. She took it into Walmart, LVMH, Coca-Cola, and more. And now she has put it in a book published by Wiley. It's called How to Do More with Less. But here's the thing. This is not really a book about AI. It's a book about change. It's a book about the person brave enough to step into the world they do not yet understand and find their footing. The whole world is doing that right now with AI. And my guest today knows exactly what that feels like. She has been doing it for her entire life. So welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. My name is Tom Dutta, and we're going to go deep today with our guest, Sharon Gai. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tom. I was just recording that beautiful introduction. I've never heard it told that way before, but I mean, it's interesting when it happens to you and you sort of live the first person POV, and then it's another thing when someone writes about it in third person. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're so polite, and you actually went right into something that I always like to ask: is what was it like listening to your life unfold in front of you live? So thank you for recording it. That's kind of fun. So I'm going to just throw this out to you, and then we're going to go into what I call Plato's Garden. So, what you just heard me say, there's a 7-year-old girl in Vancouver hiding the lunch, and kids want to see the dumplings. And so starting there, who was she before she learned to disappear? Who was that girl?
Well, I think I was born in a pretty traditional Chinese family, I would say. So my dad was, or on the folks on my dad's side, he was actually from the countryside. So really from sort of the bottom, I guess, in China back in the day. And if you look at China as a whole economically, it's really transformed itself. I think, in the 90s, I don't know the actual statistics, so I'm not going to make anything up, but a massive portion of China was living under the poverty line. And, a lot of people found it really hard to even feed themselves. And then China enters the WTO and this whole manufacturing industry that just bursts out of nowhere. And then fast forward to many decades later, you go to Shenzhen today. And because that's a trip that I just came back from,
Yeah.
and we had the world's top startups from Silicon Valley, LATAM, Europe, and everyone was just so amazed with the amount of innovation and progress that it has been. And I think for a lot of those folks, they didn't see what it was like in the 90s,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
did. And so I think it has been just a dramatic difference. So who was I back then? I mean, I was just classically like an average person that was born at the time. And also during that time, and this is part of the societal, I guess, zeitgeist maybe, is that a lot of Chinese families immigrated, because at the time it was known that, abroad or Western worlds were superior. They had better education, there was better air, just air quality was better. I remember really significantly people talking about how you land in somewhere like Canada, just out of the airplane, suddenly you can breathe.
Yeah, absolutely. What a difference, eh?
Yeah.
Let's pause it there. It's so fantastic hearing about that perspective. I was just thinking too. Back then, you're a younger you, and if we look at neuroscience, even understanding, rationalizing our thoughts, it's really hard when you're back in your early days until you get older and you're adult to really know what you were. So, thanks for taking us back there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take us into Plato's Garden. Are you ready to go into Plato's Garden? Tell some stories.
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to set this up. I'm going to put something on the screen again. So I'm just going to add that. You can see that there, right? So everybody, here we go. Stand by. Welcome to Plato's Garden. So Plato was an Athenian philosopher during the classical period in ancient Greece, the founder of the Platonist school of thought and the academy, from the Greek word academia. Apparently was the first institution of higher learning, Sharon, in the Western world. So what we're going to be doing as we talk here is we're going to be weaving the conversation through three areas. We call this the influences of context. So this is critical thinking, which human beings don't do that well, in my opinion. So we're going to be looking at macro. What was going on in the global world around you that shaped your work? Number two is mezzo. What was happening in the sector that influenced the context of your work? And then three, my favorite, what was the micro? Like what was going on with you? And the personal, we already heard a little bit about that. So let me take that off the screen. And we're going to just throw something out and we'll just riff back and forth and tell some stories. So we'll go into micro first. You eventually went back to China as an adult, and there for the first time you were told you weren't Chinese enough. At least that's what I understand. What did it feel like to be rejected by both worlds you called home? And then out of that came this culture fluid.
So I remember significantly the day we were in a leadership training. So I was part of this group of people that was recruited into the company to, I guess, have the privilege to have extra overlook or oversight by leadership. And we were going through leadership training. And something that's unique about Chinese tech culture is this thing called 996. I don't remember if I told
996?
you. Yeah.
No.
It's quite common now in San Francisco too for a lot of founders or a lot of folks that work in the AI space. It's basically a work schedule. You start from 9, you end at 9. You start from 9 a.m., you end at 9 p.m., and then for 6 days a week. So 9, 9, 6. And then some other business units that we had was 007, which is basically nonstop. I mean,
Really?
it's like the lighthearted part of this is it's a kind of a joke of sorts, right? Because it just kind of feels like that. So it wasn't precisely like nobody is clocking out like precisely at those
Yeah.
hours. But that was quite a common work phenomenon then. And I remember we were talking about, work-life balance and what that looked like and what work culture looked like in the West or in specifically in West. When I say West, I just mean North America, really. Versus somewhere like China. And we divided ourselves into groups of, do we agree to work sort of more 996 type of style or work-life balance? And obviously the whole room veered towards that work-life balance section. And then that was when I was spoken to in private by a local Chinese colleague. And she said, "Oh, since you moved that way, you're probably not that Chinese." And so
Wow.
that was when, that was the first sort of apparent moment of realization that I had. Even though I look absolutely Chinese, I can speak Chinese and work in Mandarin Chinese, but it definitely felt like culturally I was not 100% there.
Wow. Let me just change the view on the screen here. Put another camera up. This is my desk cam, so I'm going to be making notes. I have Sharonisms already written on my paper here. And one of the things that I thought I'd do is just to give the depth of who you are, because Sharon is a very accomplished person. And we'll put this in the show notes at the end, but I think it's important. So, like, your career trajectory has been incredible. I'm just going to read my notes here. In the intersection of technology, commerce, global strategy, and your defining chapter, I think, started at Alibaba. And then the client roster, the people that you've spoken to or worked with is long, like TEDx, Singularity University, UBS, Deloitte, Walmart. It goes on and on and on. It's pretty incredible. You have an honors BA in international development from McGill, and a master's in information management from Columbia University. And then, of course, put the book up there that you have. Just read the title to us of your current new book.
This is a new book that I just published called How to Do More with Less, Future-Proofing Yourself in an AI-Driven Economy.
Yeah, and look at this, Sharon. I've got a copy here, too. I was so excited to get it. We're going to talk about the book in a little bit, and I've read it cover to cover, and it's fantastic. So let's get back into Plato's here. I have to say this, that as a Canadian, I've been in Canada since I was 6, and I came through Singapore, Malaysia from Britain, where I was born on a military base. My dad was in the British Army. My parents from Fiji, and then my grandparents are from India. So I'm a Canadian. But it's interesting, I didn't know my roots. And in my recent work I've just finished my doctorate, I learned about my identity. And without getting into my story, because it's about you today, they say that when we don't know about the missing parts of ourselves, we make up stories, neural adaptations, and it shapes us. And if we're not seen and heard, we can't live a fulfilled life. And so that's what's remarkable to me is what you've done by moving from that not being seen to everything that you've done now. So let me put this out to you. You describe adapting to change as learning not to abandon who you are, but to navigate new systems using your unique perspective as advantage. And at what point in your life did you actually believe that? Because I imagine for a long time being different just felt like a wound. What kind of flipped the switch?
Yeah. I also remember precisely the moment for that. So when I was in China, I did this interesting experiment where I was always a fan of Friends.
Yeah, I remember.
From the show where everyone sort of gathers in Monica's apartment all the time. And so when I was there, I banded together with 5 of my other colleagues who one of them was French, or 2 of them were French, one was Canadian, there was a American, or 2 Americans, and we lived together. And we wanted to write a book about, at first we didn't really know what to call it, but if you look at the stories that we wanted to tell, the pattern there was culture fluidity, but it's just that everyone wanted to write their own version. But if you look at the commonality between all of them, it was, how did we reckon with this change of culture? Because everyone was born one country, grew up in another, and then now all arrived to China for work. So the moment that it hit me of that being different is a advantage, not a downside, was after I wrote my own story. When I started to writing the series of stories, and the one of them that I wrote was called Being Culture Fluid. I don't even remember how the term came to me.
Yeah.
But that's what it felt like. Where because I think even if I look at that term now and I try to break it down, it eventually became the name of my company. So the AI advisory company that I run today. And the logo that I have of it is 2 circles joining,
Yeah.
and it almost looks like a Venn diagram with the middle colored out. And that's now a sort of attitude I have to anything that's different. So now it's sort of expanded into not just cultures, but anytime you're met with something that's different from you, whether it's an opinion, a religion, a political stance, a way of working. When Gen Z folks work with boomers, they meet also, and there's a little bit of a clash, but somehow these 2 groups also figure out how to work together. Anytime where there's just 2 opposing or disparate things meeting, that eventually evolved into that. But the night that I formulated that term was when I was writing down these stories.
Oh, that's very cool. I'm just going to put something else on the screen here. I'm just reading from my notes, my own research. And let me just find that spot here. I put here her central thesis, this is my words, adapting to AI era looks remarkably like what immigrants and cultural outsiders have always done. This is profound, I think, and this is an original idea. And so that really struck me. And, I think you're very well spoken, but, your knowledge and your ability to critically think, it comes through all your work. So I highly recommend everybody that you get the book and you connect with Sharon. Sharon, let's keep going here. You will stay in micro still. You took this story that you just shared with us to the TEDx stage, which is cool. What surprised you about how people responded when you finally told your story publicly?
I went back to my college to do it. So it was TEDx McGill, where I graduated. And what I realized is this concept of going deeper into culture fluidity, I kind of took it for granted when I was in college. McGill's a very unique melting pot. I think the word melting pot, is very overused, but McGill itself is kind of like that middle because it sits in Montreal, which is francophone by nature.
That's right.
Which is a province that's kind of, because every other province is English speaking. And when you are an Anglophone, you get there, it's like, okay, do I have to learn French now? And then the local people are like, all of these Anglophone people are here. Like, we want to, retain our French. I remember on my first job out of college, I was paid to learn French by the government because they just wanted to hold on to that language so much.
Interesting.
And yet McGill is a university where, a third of my class at least was American. They came because of the younger drinking age for a very practical
Really?
reason. Yes, because it's 21 in the US and it's 18 in Canada. And then a third was international. So we had a lot of actual French people from France. There was also a huge community of Middle Eastern people because for whatever reason, McGill has a very good brand in the Middle
It's
East.
true.
And then a third was Canadian. And then within that third, it was like half local Quebecers and then half out of like non-Quebecers from other provinces. So that school just was very culture fluid from day one. And so when I was there, I kind of took it for granted. I never had to feel like I had to change myself or anyone needed to change for each other, for that matter. And it wasn't until I left and I went to all these other places. I went to New York after, and then back to China, and then back to the US. And then fast forward to the TEDx day, which was 2021, 2. I went back to a room full of 18-year-olds because most people who attended the TEDx there was still going to school.
Sure.
It was like, oh, like this is what I took away from this school, and it felt really good being back there again.
Oh, that's awesome. Just going to talk about culture for a minute. So again, I'm a Canadian, right? I was telling you I've been here since I was 6. When I came here, my father taught us, to step up and fit in. So, there are some people who come here from the country I'm from who stay in a bubble, right? They, for example, Indian, they go to their temple. They don't necessarily always learn the language of the land. They don't integrate. And there was this thing called assimilation back then in Canada, and I know it was big when I grew up. And so that's what I did is I came here for a better life, and my father said, go out there, never put your hand out, and go be the best you can be. And so I got into business. I became a CEO at age 31 and really moved my way in my career. But things have changed a lot because, whether it's assimilation or however we say it, we don't see that as much anymore. We see people coming to a country and they stay in their groups, or they stay in their own culture. And so I think it's changing the fabric, certainly British Columbia, I see it, of our nation. And that's why I think what you're teaching is really profound, because I think people can learn from you about the importance of this culture fluidity. So fantastic. Let's go into the mezzo area now, which is the sector that influenced your work. So you were inside Alibaba, which is an amazing company, I think, advising heads of state on digital strategy. That's a remarkable vantage point. What did you see happening with AI there that the rest of the world wasn't paying attention to yet?
When I went back to China, I had always been going to China throughout my sort of teenage college life, but I didn't work there. And so I think the new page that I got to was just the incredible innovations in tech that had happened. So when I went, 2017 was the year where most of China went cashless. So China skipped credit cards. If you go to China today, you don't really touch cash. If you pull out a dollar bill, people will be very confused, or rather they'll just think it's kind of inefficient.
Yeah.
Most people pay by QR codes. And now, there's pay to tap or palm to pay,
Yeah.
or there's, face scanning payment technology now. So it's transformed in all sorts of different ways. But in 2017, that was very innovative. And so that was something that I saw that was very different. Another thing was just the maturity of machine learning algorithms that these Chinese tech companies were able to capture. So I worked inside this app called Taobao, which is the Amazon of China. And I saw things within Taobao. Now, roughly the same algorithm was carried over to TikTok. So to a common Western person, they know about TikTok and why it's so addictive. they would know about Temu or Shein. These are major e-commerce marketplaces that's also exited out of China. The underlying algorithm is very similar. They were all sort of born from the original, I would call it the mother app, which is Taobao, because that was the first app that started all of this. And just the level of precision and personalization that any business could leverage and use is it was very ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And again, in the 90s, it was kind of a lot of Chinese companies studying Western companies, how to operate, everything from leadership to operations to technology. And now I think a lot of Western companies are looking to China to see what's in the future, and what can they learn from that.
It's very interesting. I'm going to put something on the screen here. Just tell us again what we're looking at there.
The cover, which has a B on it.
Yeah. And read the title out so those on the audio podcast eventually will just hear you say it.
How to do more with less, future-proofing yourself in an AI-driven economy.
Yeah, that's very cool. So I'm just going to remove that. I want to also brag on your behalf. So I got advanced copy of the book. So thank you, Sharon. And I was just telling Sharon that we were at a hotel called the Wedgwood, which is my favorite boutique hotel, Sharon, in downtown Vancouver. It's like staff to guest ratio 7-1. And then it's got Michelin rating and things like that. So we go there for a retreat. I've been going there for 30 years. And I had this book, and I was sitting in the Bacchus Lounge with my wife across from me. And the people are walking by and said, "Where'd you get that book?" Because the title is so interesting, how to do more with less. But one of the things I marked in here, and I'll get you to talk about it for a minute, is page 15. Like, for most people, what is AI? I mean, I guess if you're Canadian, you go, "What's AI, eh?" And so I'm going to just hold this up here, and then I'll just talk from it. So this is page 15. You can see I've written on it. And what was interesting, it says there are several different types of AI. So there's like reactive machines, limited memory, theory of mind, self-aware. Just talk a little bit about that, because I don't think a lot of people really understand what AI is.
That is sort of a changing scale of what AI is. So the more primitive version of reactive machine is when we're dialing into a phone tree, for instance. And so, or let me take a step back. When we look at AI as a whole, most of it is training and more deep training on in improving an algorithm. AI sits at this intersection of data science as well as computer science. So it's computer code that is being put together with massive amounts of tokens or parameters being trained that creates a algorithm that can predict you better things. At the end of the day, really crux of what AI is it's a prediction engine, I would say. And there's more primitive versions, and it progresses into more advanced versions. The sort of stopping point that we have is theory of mind. And that's sort of where we stop, because even if you look at the super intelligent LLMs that we have today, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, it still doesn't truly have theory of mind, which is something that's very unique to humans. And that's the ability to empathize, really, is to fit in the shoes of someone else. If you ask a LLM, "Oh, I just got laid off today, and I feel really sad," the LLM can respond to you very intelligently, can feign empathy, can say, "Oh, then maybe, take a break or go on vacation." But that's not true theory of mind. And that's also tied to a concept called artificial general intelligence, which a lot of these AI founders or LLM companies are trying to aspire to get to. Which is this level of intelligence that truly is on par to humans. And we're still not quite there yet. And then the self-aware type is, that sort of, if you've watched movies before, it's like the Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator, or Megan, or in the movie Megan, or Ex Machina, or I, Robot, the Will Smith movie. It's where they are. It's a level of super intelligence that's way beyond the capabilities of a human, and we are definitely quite far from that.
Yeah.
So the reason why I break it down in sort of in a scale is because of this fear that we have of AI. We've been painted this very awful picture of what AI is, that it's very intelligent, it's very scary, and eventually it kills us all. That's usually the narrative of every single AI movie that we have. And while I cannot eliminate the possibility of that, and if you ask any of these AI researchers, no one can completely eliminate that possibility.
Yeah.
Like how many things are possible in the world, it might not be probable, but it's possible. The current technology that we have today, although it is, exponentially always getting better, but as of today, that's something that's still in existence.
Yeah. No, it sends my mind on a journey in different areas here. We're critical thinking, everyone. So you're getting a sense we're connecting Sharon's story through all these different contexts and getting a deeper meaning of why she does this public work. And it takes me back, like when I grew up, like there was no microwave, there was no internet at that time. My parents, come from a certain generation, and I went through convergence in my career. I've been through 11 mergers and acquisitions. So as a leader, a high leader, CEO, I ran some of them, some I was following. And I saw convergence in so many industries. Like, remember before Netflix, you used to go into Blockbuster Video and pick up boxes off a shelf. And then all of a sudden streaming came. Everybody thought, oh my God, that's going to take away all the jobs, et cetera. Then I look at banking, which is a big part of where my sector I grew up, Sharon, and, ATMs. I remember being a bank teller and standing at the front, and all of a sudden this big thing comes up, the ATM machine. We had to go out and demo it. And everybody was up in arms. Oh my God, they're trying to take away our jobs, et cetera. And what it really did is it redeployed certain basic transactions where people could get service and faster and convenience, and freed us up to learn things like selling mutual funds and stocks and lending money to people. So I've been through this adoption curve, and I think you're right. The narrative out there about AI is so sometimes skewed. Last thing I want to say to you is that do you watch movies? Because there was a great movie recently starring Chris Pratt, and the movie is about him being accused of something, murdering someone, and he had to face an AI court. So the judge was an AI court, and he had 90 minutes to prove his innocence, or he would die. And it was fascinating. Yeah, you should watch it.
Called?
I can't remember, but Google Chris Pratt movie on AI. It's fascinating. It was very entertaining too. But they showed all the technologies that he could literally, that while there, the judge of the court could connect him to go backwards in time, to talk to people that may have been witnesses. We thought it was very interesting. But one last thing I want to mention is LLMs, so large language models. I embrace Claude. I use ChatGPT, and I use it a lot. One of the things it's teaching me is how to ask better questions. So I took a course on prompt engineering, and I'm not going to get into that because it'll take too much time. But I learned how to prompt, and I'll use in a collaborative way AI, and I've built some agents to work with me. But it's really teaching me to ask the better questions. And as a leader, if you're leading somebody, giving them direction to do something, it really teaches you a skill set. So I think we're following you there and agreeing with you. Question for you about your advisory work. I'm just curious, when, the big advisory firms like the Deloittes and all, when you're talking to them now, what are you telling them in terms of how to advise or help businesses with this whole concept of AI? Because a lot of people are confused about it.
Yeah, I think from a business world, the big thing is everyone feels behind.
Really?
Yeah. I was just in a presentation the other day with Honda, and it's a leading car company. And they feel behind. But I mean, no matter who I turn to, no matter who I talk to, everyone feels behind. The way that I look at sort of businesses and in adoption is I separate into 3 chunks. So I call them, there's a sliver of tiny companies called AI native companies. A second chunk would be AI forward type of companies. And a third one, which is where the vast majority of businesses sit, is called AI adjusting. So these are folks and companies still adjusting to tools. How do I use it? Is it even useful? What are my risks? And they're still asking a lot of questions surrounding it.
Yeah.
And everyone feels behind. The people that are inventing the technology are probably the only people that maybe don't feel behind, but the founders you have in Silicon Valley, for them, they feel behind because everyone is racing to adopt the right framework or set up the right agents, because if you don't set it up in the right way, then you'll probably be a lot slower than your competitor who can learn faster than you. The folks that have a full-time job are feeling behind because their friends are getting laid off and they're seeing all these alarming headlines of layoffs. Meta just did the big layoff, I think yesterday. And they feel behind because they're being told that AI takes away jobs, just like how, we heard that ATMs take away bank teller jobs. And they feel behind because they feel like this is a new world and they're not very comfortable in this world. I also hear, I go into a lot of these conferences for keynotes, and another narrative or stream that I hear is folks that are kind of older, in their maybe 60s, 65, 70. They tell me, they're like, I don't even know if I should learn it because I'm like, in a few years, I'm just going to retire. Like, what is kind of the point of learning it anymore? So I hear that too. And I think we can't forget about those voices also.
Sure.
Because not everyone is driven to learn it. Not everyone is propelled to adapt. There's a large group of folks that are against it. And actually, if you look at Gen Z's sentiment in the US right now, a lot of them are against it. Like 3 CEOs were in May. There's a lot of commencement speeches. 3 CEOs were just booed when they talked about, in your future, if you want to future-proof yourself, you should learn AI, because that's just age-old thing to tell young people. And there were a lot of boos. So, it's many dissenting voices. Companies are also all over the map. And so what I usually tell them is, first of all, I try to separate hype from reality. So I give them all these alarming headlines of the layoffs, of what AI can do, that it's getting exponentially better, which kind of sometimes I think for them, it's like many disparate opposing points, because on the one hand, I'm telling them AI is so powerful. On the other hand, I'm telling them 95% of companies that's run AI pilots have failed. Like, there's no EBIT return. So to sit in the audience for one of my sessions, it can seem very confusing because I'm not telling them sort of just one lane or one side. And so I think it forces them to operate in this space of, okay, there's so many different opposing pieces of evidence. What do I do then now?
I think what you just touched on, and that's a great answer for advisory. I think what you just touched on is back to Plato's garden concept of critical thinking. It's finding the facts, digging and finding not just the narrative, but the facts, and then saying, okay, wait a minute, here's the truth. Here's an example. When you were talking, my brain was going this way to another point. That, okay, a company might lay off a bunch of people out. So somebody hears about that and they tie it to AI. It's because of AI. Well, wait a minute. Let's do some critical thinking and look at the global context. We came out of COVID-19. We are going through some geopolitical issues with prices of fuel are up, cost of living is up, Vancouver, it's $1 million to get a home, etc. People can't, with 2 jobs, even afford to be in the housing market. Companies are struggling. Our policies in our province of British Columbia, Sharon, are not conducive necessarily to business. So some businesses are leaving. So you go, wait a minute. If I'm a CEO running my company, I'm looking at profitability. I'm looking at revenue growth. I'm looking at operational efficiency. Maybe there's other reasons why we're needing to lay people off, and maybe it's not just this thing, AI. Okay, we can replace tasks, we can redeploy people, but there's other contexts, because I guarantee you that narrative, if you look deeper into it, as you're right, is fear, but it tends to be, in my opinion, kind of skewed. Let's go back into the book. Hold up your book there again. Fantastic cover. All right, read the title out.
How to Do More with Less, Future-Proofing Yourself in an AI-Driven Economy.
Great, thank you. The reason why I asked you to do that is a little B on there, so that leads to the next thing I want to throw out there. So in the book, you write about the shift from busy bee to beekeeper. In one sense, what is the actual difference, and why does it matter so much right now?
So pre-2022, and 2022 is sort of the magical year because that was the release of ChatGPT, and the transformer model is sort of democratized or consumerized, and now we as lay people can access the powers of AI starting that year. So prior to that year, we worked like busy bees. We would open our laptops, go through our to-dos, and execute each task one by one. And post-22, a lot of us are still stuck working like a busy bee, whereas now we have the privilege of working like a beekeeper. So it's a new mindset or way of approaching work, which is you're the overseer of everything that's happening. And so what parts of your work can you give over to a bee to handle, and you're still staying in the overseer role instead of being the person that executes every single task. So a lot of people in the corporate space haven't done that self-reflection exercise of, so I have 8 hours of work I have to go through every single day. How many hours am I spending on things that really don't need me? And I think we don't value human hours as much as we should. And 2022 is the very remarkable year that allows us to see now the significance of a human hour, because that's a very precious.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to embrace that and just tell you personally. So, for example, to run this show, every week we're doing hour-long. The pre-production work is significant. You get a sense from what you're seeing me do here. I'm very unique. Most hosts won't do this, and including I read your book, all that stuff. But what I do is I collaborate with Claude and ChatGPT on my show. So, for example, I'll say, prepare me a one sheet, gather all the information you can find about Sharon, and I'll give it your URL to your LinkedIn, analyze it, and find some nuances and things. And it'll help me put together the material. Now, if I was to do that myself, Sharon, it would take me hours. And so people are going like, well, Tom, you're just cutting corners so that you don't have to do as much work. Well, it's like, yeah. Because how do you think I write reviews on Amazon for Sharon? And how do you think I create productions that are 3 times what most hosts will do? So I'm redeploying my skills to what you just taught us, from being a busy bee to working smarter, in my opinion, not necessarily harder. And I'm using my pals, my little team that are my LLMs. So I really am excited about what you're teaching the world. Let's move on here to the next question. I think we talked about this when you see, I'll just say that AI slices off tasks, not jobs. It's one of the clearest reframes. I just want to acknowledge that and leave that. But it was something clever in the book I had some fun with. You'll know what I mean when I say this. There's one page, I actually started laughing when I read it, and it was like the org chart of the future.
Oh, yeah.
And I have this, this is a page here. It was so cool. It's got the CEO's face and then everything else, all the other senior positions, and it's got a question mark, org chart of the future. So we won't get into that. You got to read the book, but I'm just teasing the audience. It's very clever. I want to go into the last segment of Plato's now with you, which is the global, which we call this macro. Okay, so what was happening? As an example, if your parents grew up in the Depression, you might have heard them talking a certain way, and they influenced you and shaped you into the way you think. So this is like globally what's influenced or impacted your work. So there's something you call the compute or compute desert, the gap between who has access to the real power of AI and who doesn't. Why is this not just a tech issue, but a power issue?
So there are, right now, all frontier model companies are primarily located in two countries. One is the US and the other is China. I mean, Canada has Cohere, which is the Canadian LLM. France has Mistral, which is its own version. But other than that, maybe there are others that that we haven't accounted for. But other than that, that's primarily those two. That also means that to run these LLMs, huge data centers need to be built for them. And so, not surprisingly, that's the abundance and compute that both of these countries will have. If you look at LATAM or the Caribbean or Africa or even Europe in regions, Southeast Asia as well, they have significantly less data centers than the other two. I used to work in the cloud space, so to me, it's more sort of obvious when you look at geography or worlds from a global scale and where these endpoints are located. But it's a compute desert for all of these other countries that I mentioned, other than the US and China. In the future, if we think deeper with compute and what it means, and there's a lot of guesses and economic sort of tools that's being thought of right now, which is universal basic compute or universal basic income. I think a Canadian city has tested this, and AI really accelerates that path forward because in the future we might not have work exist anymore. So how do people feed themselves? UBI is an option. UBC is now another option, which is universal basic compute, which is you just give people at least enough compute for them to do their work. We're not there yet because AI agents are still making a ton of mistakes. I mean, even yourself, when you're creating those one-pagers or creating scripts, like you still have to go in and edit something or
that's right,
tweak something because it's not all perfect. But one day we might get there where the thing that is being outputted is completely perfect, and maybe it's even better than something that you would have personally written yourself.
For sure. Yeah.
It's possible that would happen. And so when that happens, what do we do for, or what should humans spend their hours on, and what will work look like? And so it's not just a tech issue, but it's a power issue, because even if you look at just from a geopolitical stance of, President Trump and President Xi just met as in a monumental meeting. It's sort of two leading world powers, and you have the whole world watching. What are these two people going to conspire in that the rest of us have to kind of digest? And so following the same vein, it's the same in the AI world, which is how can US LLM companies and Chinese ones work together, or how will they shape the rest of the world for us? Because they kind of control the fountain of how work will churn out or spin out. They're sort of two leading places that's shaping the future of work. The UBI or UBC concepts will probably be tested there first before it's rolled out to the rest of the world.
I see. Interesting. I mean, it really is a universal thing. And I was thinking about the use of AI in data centers. Just want to riff on that for a minute with you, because my brain went on this journey. That there's pictures now we're seeing in our media feeds about Vancouver's getting data centers, and then they show this big monolith thing, right? I also know that there's a lot of power that's needed, so it's going to drain on the grid and all this kind of stuff. And then I read a book a long time ago called Jeff Bezos. It was written by an author who published through New York, my own publisher. So I've published 3 books, and we both were fellow authors at the time. And Bezos has this thing at the end of that book. It says that his vision, this is back maybe 10 years ago, his vision was that everybody would work from space on their laptop building businesses, and the world would be a giant park. So it's really interesting. And when I'm throwing it all out, I'm kind of jumbling it together for critical thinking that, it's called NIMBY, not in my backyard. I don't want one of those big power centers, et cetera, et cetera. But the world has gone through this over and over again. I don't want a prison in my backyard. I don't want low-cost housing in my backyard. I don't want this and that. But I think we'll find a way through it, because to power AI, you need to have these centers. So be interesting to hear in your future talks on that topic. Let's get a couple more questions, and we want to honor you for a few things. So just checking in, are you having fun?
Yeah, this is the first time that the whole Socrates Garden, that framework, I've never seen that done in any other.
Awesome.
So
there you go. You heard it the first here on the Quiet Warrior Show, everybody, endorsed by Sharon Gai, the process. Okay, let's go into, I'm going to go into the segment I call the unwritten chapter. We've been having fun with it, Sharon, and you're an author, so here we go. If there were another book, a third, I think, the one not yet written, the one that could only be written after everything that's about to happen with AI, what might it be about?
I'm already thinking about the like not an epilogue, but like a following book already, which is what skills do we need to work in this new future? So How to Do More with Less is more of a adjustment book. It's an intro to what AI is doing, what it is, how should you use it, the lens with which you should use it. But it's sort of still a reactive book, because this thing has befallen us, and how do we adjust to this thing? So the second one that I'm thinking about is going forward. Now that we know what will probably happen, how should we change our lives? Or what majors should we have gotten in college? What books should we have read growing up? How should we approach work in the future? Is there even going to be in the work future? And if most of the busy bee work, which mostly occupied the knowledge economy, if a lot of that is going away or changing, then what other types of work is out there, and what is ultimately fulfilling for us to do? That would probably be about the next one.
Wow, what a great answer. Boy, that is so deep. I knew you were writing some other book in your mind, because people like you who are so forward-thinking, I think one of the things you make us think about, and this is critical thinking again, is like it's almost like you are critiquing your own work through the lens of, I call it autoethnography, which is what part of my research was in my own doctorate. You're using your lived experience as research, and you're critiquing your current work and looking ahead about this next book. I think it'll be a bestseller. Send it to me so we can get you on the show when it's written. I'll support you 100%. Last question we have here, and then a couple of things we got to award you with quickly. This comes from the last guest. It's called the Warrior's Torch. So the last guest left you a question. So what is the one thing you know to be true to yourself that no algorithm will be able to replicate?
That I think, therefore I am.
Oh, nice. Awesome. And we'll make sure that guest watches the show and sees that answer. So that's fantastic. All right. Are you ready to be recognized, acknowledged? It's like Christmas came early. We got a few things we're going to do for you here. So I'm going to just set up a sound effect here. So we're going to put something on the screen. Just, you see that there? Amazon? Mm-hmm. Okay. This is live, posted on Amazon. So stand by, everybody. I got this kind of fun music to play. It's a quick 3, 2, 1. Okay, how could you tell that was something about futuristic? So I'm releasing today, revealing the 5-star review, international review for Sharon's book. And the review is titled, She Lived It Before She Wrote It. And it's about your book, How to Do More with Less. It was posted on Amazon.ca. It's live now. And what I would normally do is read through the whole thing so you could revel in it. I think because we have a limited time with you today, I'm just going to mention that it's up there. You can go see it. And I'm just going to remove that from the screen and do one more thing here and share something with you from, can you see that there? That's Amazon. You see that? Yeah.
Yes.
You don't have to read it, but that's just proof that it is live and I bought your book. So there it is. So congratulations on that review. We're going to remove that. And I'll send you the PDF and the copy of it, okay? The next thing we're going to do is add this to the stage. And we're going to just remove, sorry, let me remove that. I'm going to add that quickly. And we're going to go here. One of the things I do is for the guests that I think are really remarkable, I write LinkedIn reviews. And I started doing this just recently. So this will be posted on your LinkedIn for you to vet. And if you like it, you can add it to your profile. And it makes you relatable or referable by others. So here it is, LinkedIn recommendation I'm revealing today. I had the privilege of interviewing Sharon Gai on the Quiet Warrior Show, and she is one of the clearest thinkers on AI and human work I've come across. Her new Wiley book, How to Do More with Less, proves it. No hype, no panic, just sharp, practical guidance from someone who has actually advised heads of state and global brands inside Alibaba. What sets her apart is the human underneath the work. She's calm, generous, deeply self-aware, the kind of person who has lived through real change and uses what she learned to help others find their footing. If AI is on your radar, and it should be, follow Sharon, read her book, and book her to speak. You will leave the room thinking differently. Congratulations, Sharon.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Let me just change my sound effects back. Those are some cheap free applause about your recommend. And the last thing we're going to do is recognize you with an award. Did you know you were getting an award?
No.
Yeah, you are. So here you go. So the it's called the challenge coin. Have you heard of these?
No.
Okay. So 1% of people in the world come through my show. I vet hard, as you know. We look for people who have found something deep in their life, turned it into something positive and made an impact. And you are one of those people. So I created this when I started the show. It was a coin. Challenge coins, this comes with it, were started during the World War I era. Practice of carrying a coin designed specifically for a unit was popular with the Army Special Forces. Carrying the coin at all times, presenting it when challenged, proved affiliation. And if you didn't have your coin, you bought drinks at the officers' club. And today, apparently, that still happens. So Sharon, these coins are held around the world for various reasons. First responders have them, organizations. So they're hand-painted and crafted and made in the U.S. Sorry, Canada. So that's the front of the coin. They're quite hefty. And on the back of it is the narrative of my show is based on hero's journey, where you make an impact after finding something in yourself. And so that's it there. So welcome to the Quiet Warrior community and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
We're now connected for life, and I'm here to amplify your story and help you in any way I can. So thank you for doing this interview. So I'll give it to you for the last word. Where can we find you and your work? Anything at all you want to tell the audience before we let you go?
Yeah, so you're mostly social media channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok are my main .com.
Okay, and we'll put that in the show notes as well. So on that note, everybody, find your true passion and purpose. Like you hear from Sharon Gai here, get her book and read it and review it and post it online. And we'll see you all again on the Quiet Warrior Show next week. And have a great day. Sharon, it's great to have you with us. Just stand by for a minute and stay with me.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca